to start with just a little bit about us. We are Hotkey Comics, and we specialize in comics from other countries. We've been doing this for about 3 years now, and I can honestly say I enjoy the world of foreign comics much more than I ever enjoyed the world of regular American comics. We are the first company ever to host a regular weekly all foreign comic sale on the internet, and we've been doing that for about 1.5 years now, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. on Whatnot. And it's a great selling platform with a focus on collectibles. We're also the first company to offer a foreign comic focused pressing and cleaning service, and we started that earlier this year. We also started a series called Fun with Foreigns. Find it on YouTube under Hotkey Comics. Each episode takes one country and gives you about a 10-minute overview of that country and comics from it. We just did episode 3 last week that came out, and it's all about Newton comics from Australia. Foreign comics really are my passion, and I spend hours every day researching them, looking up sales, talking to other collectors, and just about anything else that has to do with the world of foreign comics. Our panel tomorrow is a more general approach to the entire world of foreign comics, but in this one we're going to focus on just the market aspect of foreign comics, both the good and the bad. I'm not going to pull any punches. I want you all to be as informed as possible and ready to engage in the foreign comic market. Disclaimer, I am not a professional financial advisor. I do not have any professional financial training. All my opinions stated during this entire panel are just that, my opinions. You should always consult a financial professional before making any financial decisions, and that is not me. All right. So this panel is going to have a lot of data in it to show you sales history around these. Our panel tomorrow is not nearly as foreign heavy, or is nearly as data heavy, and it's more of an overall approach and view to foreign comics covering multiple categories, where this one really just focuses on the market. Now, just about everyone knows about the historic rise the overall comic book market went through from around 2018 through early last year. They saw just about every key comic, and many comics that weren't keys but just had cool covers, reach record highs over and over again, with each new sale seeming to be larger than the last. Most of us knew this couldn't last and the market was due for a correction, which we're now in the middle of. That has impacted every part of the American comic market, from golden age to modern, from keys to variants to store exclusives and everything in between. But you know what market has not dropped in the last year? Foreign comics, or as many of us like to call them, foreign editions. Foreign editions continue to see steady rises in the market nearly every month, and that has been the case for at least 3 years now. This is due to foreign editions still being largely undervalued, and there are still a lot of room for growth on these amazing comics. I think we still have about 2 or 3 more years of steady growth in the market at the current rate before these comics start to reach their full potential values, although a rush on the market could speed that up dramatically, and I talk more about the supply line in the panel tomorrow. One issue with the foreign markets that exist, and is always going to exist because of the overall scarcity, is that we don't have the sales data available to us that the American comic market has. With very few exceptions, you can always find multiple sales records in multiple grades over the last few months for the vast majority of all American keys and variants. And that just doesn't exist in the foreign comic market. You might find a couple sales in the last few months on some issues, but you're rarely going to find multiple sales in multiple grades like you do with the American market. Now, one unfortunate result of this is that the sales data is easier to manipulate than the American market through fake sales and shill bids. When you're newer to foreign comics, it's very important to talk to people like me and others in the community when you're considering purchases, especially ones of more than $50. The vast majority of us don't want to see anyone get scammed, and we don't want you to have a bad experience, especially early on when it could ruin your interest in foreign comics. Unfortunately, just like any other large enough group, there are a few people who have no problem trying to take advantage of this aspect of the market. First, I will say always trust your gut, and listen to your BS meter if you have a good one. Second, don't be afraid to run potential purchases by other people in the community. Don't be scared to ask what someone's reputation is, and don't just ask one person, ask around. You will quickly find that the vast majority of us want to help you make good decisions on your purchases, and those few who are only out for themselves and just want to maximize their next sale will become clear pretty quickly. So let's talk for just a minute about potential market manipulation. I don't say any of this to try to scare you off. There have been countless examples in the American market of people trying to manipulate the market, and everyone still collects them. I just want to give you an idea of what it could look like in the foreign comic market. So let's look at one reportedly sold for $3,000 on eBay early last year. This is Batman 251, sorry I cut that one off a little bit, from Brazil. It's by the publisher eBall. Now cover price has only one recorded sale from February of this year for a grade 7.5, as you can see that's an 8.0, and they have the 7.5 recorded for $780, which is odd because they have sales data going back for years. So why isn't this $3,000 sale on cover price? The eBay user that's in the screenshot no longer exists, and the Instagram user who claimed this sale posted this to their account roughly a week before Whatnot had their first ever all foreign comic weekend. And the seller and I were both a part of that, along with a couple others, and they had some record sales in that event, and some of those record sales were Brazilian comics. So was the $3,000 sale an attempt to manipulate the foreign comic market before that event? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but the foreign comic market hasn't dropped at all like the American market has this last year. It's continued to rise. So why didn't the other sales since come even close to this reported record? I'm just giving you all the information that led me to my opinion. Like I told you in the beginning, I'm going to give you the good and the bad so you are as informed as you can be. Again, these are just my opinions. Maybe the sale is legitimate, and I hope they are for the sake of the market, but I'm just giving you all the data. We all want to see a strong market around foreign comics, and it's getting stronger all the time, but none of us want to see the artificial highs like the American market had, which has led to the current correction the American market's going through. All right, now let's talk about some of the good things around the foreign comic market. One sign of a healthy market is slow but steady growth, and that has been a constant in the foreign comic market for the last 3+ years. Each year, I've had a lot of regret over not buying big keys the year before because they all keep going up, and I'm sure next year I'm going to regret not buying some again this year. While this sucks to miss out on those early deals, it is a great sign for the future of the foreign market. It has rarely seen the huge quick jumps that the American market saw over and over, which many of us knew was not healthy, and why many of us expected the current correction. We don't expect any such correction in the foreign market because it has consistently seen steady natural growth overall. Comics that are $50 this year were $35 or $40 last year. They were $20 or $25 the year before that, and they were $10 or $15 the year before that. That's what we want to see from an investment standpoint, which is why a lot of people collect foreign comics. And there's nothing wrong with collecting them as an investment. There's room for everyone in the community, whether you're a flipper, or an investor, or a speculator, or a collector. We all see the same potential, and there's enough to go around, at least for now, until the market demand exceeds the supply. And that's when the real fun begins. And I talk more about the supply line in the panel tomorrow. But until that happens, I still consider it a very undervalued market, and anyone getting into it now is getting in early. Now let's look at what happened in the first ever all foreign comic auction from Heritage in November of 2022, just last fall, and the all foreign comic auction that Comic Connect just did in March this year. All these prices do include the buyer's premium. So we're going to start with some of the bigger sales from Heritage in November, and this isn't all of them, this is just highlighting some of the bigger ones to give you an idea of where the market is going. First up here, we have a very popular one. This is the Brave and the Bold 28 from Brazil. This is from eBall, which is a Brazil publisher. It's an acronym. All you got to remember is the B stands for Brazil, so you can remember where it comes from. This is a 5.5. Now, just to make another quick point here, in the American market, usually you have a price gap between CGC and CBCS, all right? That really doesn't exist in the foreign comic market. Most of us understand that just owning one of these in any condition is the goal first, whether raw or graded. So if one happens to be graded, that's a big bonus, but most of us don't penalize foreign editions for being in CBCS slabs, like you'll see with American comics. So this 5.5 in November sold for $840, about 1/6 of what the American current value is in a 5.5 this year. This one is the first issue of Super Adventure Comics. See up there. This is from Australia, the first of that title. Now this, it looks like they cracked out. You see the 6.0 CBCS label, but it was sold raw. This sold for $900. This one still has, in my opinion, a lot of room to grow long term, being 50s from Australia. That's a really good example of one. We have this here. This is a Gibi Mensal from Brazil. Now this has heavy restoration. It's a C5 designation, as you can see here, which if you're not familiar, CGC does 5 levels of restoration, C1 through C5, with C5 being the most extensive. Normally, when you see this in American comics, this is called the purple label of death, because people don't want it, because they don't want restored comics. But again, with foreign editions, they really don't have that level of negativity around them. Now, that's not to say a blue label isn't preferred, but just realize how many of these are going to get purple labels, especially in countries where modifying the comic was much more normal, like Brazil. They were known for removing staples to preserve them, because staples would rust really quick, it's very humid. You know, they would color touch it, they'd tape up rips, they would trim them, whatever was necessary they thought to preserve the comic longer, they had no problem doing. Especially when you get into golden age stuff like this in pre-war comics. So this one, despite being a 1.8 purple label, still sold for $960, being low grade and not really being a significant key. It's just a really cool Submariner cover. So that got nearly $500 per point for a low grade purple label. And that should give you a little indication of how the market is starting to view some of these. Here we have one most will recognize. This is Iron Man #1, but this is from Chile. This is pretty much a ghost. I've only seen 2 other copies of this, for sale in the last 2 years. This is sold for $1,020 in an 8.0, which is only about $100 off of the American equivalent price. So this one is almost already caught up to the American, while other ones are still lagging far behind. So that gives you an idea how rare that one is. Here we have another golden age from Brazil. Again, a non-key in comparison to like Iron Man 1 and Brave and the Bold #28. But this was just a CGC Blue Label 2.0, and this went for $1,140, over $500 per point. This is another older one from Brazil, a Gibi. This is from 1948. You have a CGC 3.5 in this one. This is a minor key. It has the first appearance of Namora, but again, not a major key. Still sold for $1,320. Again, almost $500 a point on there. Here we have a key from Brazil. This is the first appearance of Lex Luthor and the Daily Planet. Again, just a 2.0, but you get a blue label on this one. $1,440 in November. Nearly $750 a point. So that was a big one there. You don't see hardly any of those. The Lobino title is really tough to get, especially in the keys. Here's one you guys will recognize, Avengers #1. Now this is from Mexico. If you guys are looking for keys from Mexico, this is what you want to see, is this stamp right here. That means it's a La Prensa. There's a couple different versions of that stamp. Sometimes the line's separated. Those are the older ones. You really want those. But anytime you see this line on the stamp, that's a La Prensa, especially if it's a key. You want to get it if it's any type of deal. This one in a 4.5, again, $1,440. That's about a third of the current American value. So that one's starting to catch up. We got another Avengers here. This is the Avengers 4, also again a La Prensa. This one though, as you see, is signed by Stan Lee, and it has that yellow label from CGC. Now, getting a Stan Lee signature and a yellow label on foreign editions is tough. There's just not many out there because, you know, it's become more popular the last few years, but he wasn't signed in the last few years. So there's a very limited supply of these out there. And as you see, this one in the 6.0 went for $1,562, which I think is still a good deal for a key like that. Avengers 4 is definitely a major key. People love that cover, and you got his signature right there in the middle for it. This was a big key here, and this is a big grade. This is ASM1. This is the E-ball again from Brazil, 8.5, which when you're talking older foreign editions, that's pretty much a 9.8. I mean, you're not going to see this in a 9.6 or any of those. 8.5 is about as high grade as you can hope to get in there. And you can see people were bidding heavy on this one, $2,520. Still not up to where an ASM1 is in an 8.5, but not too far off either. You know, this had at least 5 different bidders really chasing it. That one, I think within a couple years, this could easily be worth 5 figures. This is one of those that really has a lot of room to go quick, and it'll be one of the first indicators of the market catching up. Finally, from Heritage, we have this one. This is also from Brazil. This is a 3.0 purple label. This is the first appearance of Robin here, as you see, recognize that cover maybe, from 1941. And this went for $3,600 in a 3.0 purple label, over $1,000 a point. So obviously some Robin collectors were going after this. They knew how rare it was. They didn't care about the purple label because, again, this is one you just want to own it if you can. It doesn't matter the condition. And if you get it, then you got a really rare grail. All right. And so that, it's another example there where the purple labels, they just really don't impact the price that much. Obviously, a blue label would have went for more, but that's a very respectable price for that grade. So those are a few examples of some of the top sales from Heritage in November, and that was Heritage's first ever all-foreign comic auction. It was promoted pretty well in the community, but I also know several people who didn't bid in this because they saw the American market down, and so they were hoping that this followed suit and they could buy some keys afterwards for cheap. Well, that didn't happen. A lot of these were record prices for them, and people who waited, they really regretted waiting. And then what you saw is all the same comics that were for sale from these saw all their prices rise to where they were right in relation with what the Heritage auction pulled. So there was a lot of people who had regret, who had been kind of taking the wait and see approach instead of bidding on these. So that was November of last year in Heritage. In March of this year, Comic Connect did their first ever all-foreign auction, just 5 months after Heritage. And we'll look at some of those next. First up here, we have a nice high grade. This is from the UK, Captain Britain. This is the first appearance, as you see, of Psylocke, but it's the UK. 9.2 is really good. If you are going to get higher grades, it's going to be some of the more 70s and 80s stuff from the UK. That's where you got better chances to get those. But you see, even in that, that's really a minor key. Went for $550. Still a nice, respectable price for that. This one you guys will recognize. This is ASM 50. Again, this is the La Prensa. So from Mexico here, 5.0. Sold for $563.50, over $100 a point. That is about half about where the American's valued at right now. So that one's starting to catch up as well. This is Worlds of Fear number 10 from Brazil. Not any type of key at all, it's just one of those horror covers that people like. And in the 6.0, this still broke $100 a point, up to $633.65 that one sold for. And that was just a straight cover buy. There's no keys in that, just the horror collectors. This one really went for a deal, in my opinion. This is an E-ball from Brazil, 7.0, and again, signed by Stan Lee here. That is ASM 9, I believe. Yep, ASM 9. Your first Electro there for $638, less than $100 a point for a blue label signed Stan Lee. Somebody got a great deal on that, and that's a really good investment piece. I wish I had kept bidding on that one. But yeah, that one went for a steal. This one is a little more accurate because it's Sergeant Fury #1. It's a decent key, but not a major key like the Spider-Man ones are. Again, it's 6.0, signed by Stan Lee. Someone had a few Stan Lee comics they put in here, you know, and this one went for over $100 a point at $6.95 on that one. Again, that's a La Prensa. It's got that lion stamp you want. Especially first issues La Prensa, those are really tough to get. So one thing you want to kind of get into the mindset of with foreign editions is that mid-grade is high grade. If it's really a 5.0 or higher, that's a high grade, especially from the 60s on back. Because these were not viewed as collectible. They were just read and put in closets or thrown away or colored on or cut on, you know. So getting one in a 6.0, that's a high grade copy. Here we have another Spider-Man key. This is ASM 14. Now this one, when you compare it to ASM 9, which is an earlier edition and a bigger key, and was signed by Stan Lee, didn't get to where this one was. This is another example of how early it is in the market. There just wasn't enough people aware of this and aware of the scarcity of the La Prensas with the Stan Lee signature, you know, that should have went for more than this one, but this is a 6.5, still went for $9.20. So that kind of shows you how much of a deal that Stan Lee signed ASM 9 was in the La Prensa. And that's, you will notice some of these, you're like, shouldn't that be a little more maybe compared to others? That's just a sign of how early the market is and how few collectors are really in it. You know, if there was 20 more people bidding on this auction, you wouldn't see those disparities. They'd be much more in line. All right, here is one I mentioned before with that eBay sale. This is the exact same copy, but a higher grade. Remember that eBall, or the eBay was an 8.0. This is an 8.5. They want us to think in January of last year, an 8.0 sold for $3,000. But then when the market continued to go up in March of this year, this sold for $977.50, which is good, but nowhere near that $3,000 price. And that's why a lot of us think that other one was some market manipulation trying to raise the market. But as you see, it's pretty easy to spot those. You know, so if you're trying to buy from someone and they're like, oh yeah, well, it sold before for $5,000, so I'll sell it to you for $3,500. Ask around, see how legit that $5,000 sale was before you just send $3,500. But this still is a really great price, over $100 a point for Batman 251, which really is just a key cover. You know, there's really not any key content in it, but it is one of the most loved Neil Adams Batman covers, and it went for over $100 a point there. Here we have the classic first Punisher. This is Mac, which is from Mexico. Next to La Prensa, the La Prensas are the toughest. Macs are not too far behind them in how hard they are to get in rarity. If you see Mac keys, especially in mid-grade or higher, grab them. This at a 7.5 went for $9.83, again, over $100 a point. About a third of where the American one was at the time, although it's changed a little bit since then, but still a great deal for that one. Next up, this was Action Comics 242, your first Brainiac. This is also from eBall from Brazil. 5.5 went for $10.92, excuse me, just under $200 a point. So a really good price on that one. And you notice I'm using a lot of breaking these down to prices per point because if you're looking at how to price foreign editions, that's a good place to start. If you're looking at a key, all right, what is this comparable to? It's comparable maybe to the Spider-Man key, and that Spider-Man key goes for $200 a point, so we can start that at least as a baseline and work from there when we're figuring out values. So that's a lot of us are starting to use is the price per point on the graded sales. This is a nice one here. This is another eBall. There was a lot of Brazil ones in here. This is Batman #1. Bob Kane cover out of Brazil. $2,012.50, over $300 a point for a 6.5. And that wasn't even the biggest Batman sale that we're about to see here, in a couple. This is the ASM 1 eBall, like we saw from the Heritage auction in an 8.5. This is an 8.0, just 5 months later, and this still sold for more than the 8.5 did. Again, the other was CGC, this is CBCS, just another indicator that doesn't matter in foreign editions. You don't see that price drop. but this one in a lower grade was already outselling the one from November in a half grade higher. So the market was already aware of it, and they were like, yeah, I'll pay a little more for one a little grade lower because, you know, it's worth it, and there's not many of these out there in those grades. Here is one that really surprised us all. This is X-Men #1, it's a La Prensa. We expected this to get to about half of where it did, but as you can see, people drove this up and wanted it. $4,352 for a 6.5 signed by Stan Lee. That was a really nice sign of where the foreign market was heading, you know. Really, no one expected that price on there, and it did help bring the market up. But nobody really expects this to be a fake sale. Everyone knows who bought this and who was bidding on it, and they're all legitimate, and they wanted it, and they were fighting over it, and that's just what they were willing to go to. But that was only the third top sale from this. Number 2, we have Batman #1 from Indonesia. This one broke $1,000 a point. As you see, a 5.0 went for $5,751 with 32 total bids. This shocked more people than the X-Men one. We thought this might again be about a $2,000 comic, and the market let us know that no, this is very rare, people want it, and that's where you're seeing a lot of the first indicators is in these first appearances in country. You know, like this is the first Batman in Indonesia. You got the first Superman in Brazil now is, you know, well over $1,000 a point. So that's are some of the first things you look for, and it has the iconic cover with it as well. So that was a really good one. But the big one from Comic Connect was this La Prensa. You guys may have heard about this one. This is the famous non-canon Spidey and Gwen wedding issue. You see the La Prensa stamp here. What happened, for those who aren't familiar, Jose Duran, who was the artist in Mexico at the time, he didn't like it when they killed Gwen Stacy. So he said, I'm going to keep writing her as alive. And he did so for around 20 issues or so, I think it might even been 40. But several issues, he wrote some non-canon stuff. It wound up all being a dream is how he explained it away. But this wedding cover here is the most desirable comic out there right now, at least in the foreign world. And this one in an 8.5 went for just under $25,000. Now, there's a couple people who claim they wanted to bid more, but Comic Connect does have an extra layer of approval necessary to bid over $25,000, and these people apparently weren't aware of that, and so that's why they say this sold for just under $25,000. Because there was an 8.0 sale reported in November for $35,000, but it was a private sale. We can't prove it. Some people suspect that may have been manipulation to try to drive this one up. But either way, we know this is sold for, you know, at least high 4 figures several times in that. So that is a tough one to get. This one you have to be very careful of reprints. There's bootlegs, there's German bootlegs, there's Mexican foil bootlegs. I mean, everyone who wanted to attempt to circumvent the law and print it has. So if you're looking at getting this, make sure you ask around for the credibility of who you're buying it from and that it's a legitimate copy. This is one you don't want to buy blind on eBay just because now of how much it's been duplicated. All right. So again, the breaking them down to dollars per point is a good way to go when you're trying to find comparable keys. And then as you learn more, you know, you'll be able to estimate values better yourself, but that's a good spot to start. And these two auctions from Heritage and Comic Connect, they had a pretty significant impact on the prices of foreign comics, as you'll see in the next section we're going to cover, which is some of the eBay sales subsequent to these to see where these comics started to go. Even raw comics on eBay are selling now for really good prices. All right. So here we have Captain America 117 from Spain. This is what they call a painted cover from Spain. There's several digest size from Spain that have these painted type covers, which are variations of the American, which people are really starting to fall in love with. This one, not bad, lower grade, $95 delivered. Here we have a Wolverine #1 from Spain. This also sold for $110 delivered. That's pretty much on par with what the American price is now, so that one is pretty much caught up in that. French edition of X-Men 101. This is a Jean Frazano cover. He is basically like the Stan Lee of France. He's responsible for bringing Marvel to France and populating them and getting them popular and pushing them. And he did this acrylic style painting, which is really popular. Definitely one of my favorite foreign artists. And his covers are really starting to be noticed. You see they're $140 for a raw copy of it from France. Here we have ASM 300. This is, oh, I forgot to put the country on that one, sorry. But obviously your first Venom there, 150 bucks. And you see some of the color variations they do on covers, so they're not all direct copies. And that's what draws a lot of people to foreign editions, are these variations in those iconic covers they like. And you'll see a lot of cover sets tomorrow. I have all kinds of cover sets I cover in that panel. Here we have your first Kang, Avengers number 8. This is another one from Spain, the painted cover, digest size. $205. That is better than some of the American prices we're getting, because as I said earlier, the American market has went down, and Avengers 8 is one of them that saw pretty big drops. So getting $200 for a lower grade painted cover there, that's a very healthy market on these. This one's from the UK. Now the UK has 3 different titles. They have Fantastic here, they have POW, and they have, I'm blanking on now, but they have 3 all with that type of titles, where they did several keys in the early 60s and late 60s. This one, X-Men 14, First Sentinels, $214 for a raw copy from the UK. Really good price for that. Here we have G.I. Joe, number 1 in Portuguese. Now Portuguese, they can be from Portugal or from Brazil. It's hard to tell sometimes unless you have the indica. So a lot of times you'll just see them listed as Portuguese, and because they don't want to claim it wrong, it can be Brazil or Portugal. But this one definitely outsold the American. Higher grade copy, but not a 9.8 candidate by any means. $225 for that one. Here we have back in the UK, this is X-Men 12, your first Juggernaut. That's definitely a bigger key. $260 for that one from Fantastic as well. That one's still a little below the American, but that's one of the major American keys, so that one's going to take a little longer to catch up. But $260, man, that is a nice price for that one. This one was a combo deal. You have Fantastic 452. This again is a Frazano cover up here, Jean Frazano from France. You have FF67 down here, your first Adam Warlock, and this was sold in a combo for $320, which is a really good price. You know, those are good investment pieces there. This is more of a magazine size. Both of them are their larger comics. But yeah, really good sale on those 2. Fantastic 4 keys. This one shocked a lot of people. Secret Wars number 8 in Spanish, sold for $475. That's about 2.5 times what these sell for raw in the American. So you're starting to see, just like the newsstands did, these are starting to outsell the American counterparts as more people become aware of the scarcity and how valuable they are and how desired they are. Where, you know, about 5 years ago, people didn't want newsstands. They were sold cheaper than the American stuff because they were shunned. And all it took was an increase in the awareness around their scarcity and the value, and the value started shooting up, and that's the stage foreign editions are in right now, that early stage newsstands we're in. People are starting to notice them, they're starting to bid on them, they're starting to compete, and you're starting to see prices surpassing the Americans in some cases. And those are all, as I said, raw sales. Like none of those were graded, so those were just raw comics. So that's some pretty strong evidence that people are starting to notice these, and more people are willing to pay good money for them. I do want to thank Buy, Sell, and Trade, 85 on eBay, on Instagram, Worldwide Comics and Cards, for providing all that sales data from eBay for me. So big thanks to them. Make sure you give them a follow. They have a pretty good store on eBay with a lot of foreign editions. As well on Instagram, they post a lot, so it's a great account to follow if you like foreign editions from a reputable seller. Now you might notice some similarities, as I just mentioned, in the foreign comic market now and what happened about 5 years ago with newsstands. And again, all that took was an increase in the awareness. Where newsstands that used to sell for less than the Americans are now selling in some cases for 10 times more than the American ones are. Like the Ultimate Fallout 4, that newsstand saw posted for $60,000 in a 9.8. You know, that's more than the 1 in 25 variant. So these have the same potential, and in most cases, especially when you're getting back from the 70s and 60s on back, they're scarcer than the newsstands are, because they were printed according to the population size of these countries, which was much smaller than America, and America was printing a larger percentage per population because this was the main market. So it's not just if the population was 10% of America, they got 10% of the print run. They might only got 2 or 3% of the print run because they were printing even less. So the opinion that you'll see, especially among dealers who have been around a while, is they're like, there's no money in foreign comics, I don't buy them. Same opinion they had of Pence editions, and the same people who were, you know, talking bad about newsstands for a while. That opinion is just not holding weight anymore. And I don't think really we're even close to where the market's going to wind up. I think it's going to settle right about where newsstands are in terms of multiples to the American prices, once enough people become aware of these and start collecting them. And again, remember in this last year why these have went up from that November auction with Heritage and the March auction in Comic Connect. That's all while every other collectible market was dropping, not just American comics. Sports cards, Pokemon, Funkos, they're all down. Foreign comics are not. They continue to go steady up. So what's going to happen to them when the American market starts, you know, finding its median again and starts going up again? These are going to be going up even more. So yeah, so over the last year, foreign comics really are the lone exception in the entire collectibles market that has continued to see solid and steady gains. So that is a pretty good overview of the last year in the market around foreign comics, and the impact that the first 2 all foreign comic auctions had from major auction houses, on the foreign comic market. Now, Comic Connect has another one they just scheduled for August. How is that going to impact the market? What I can guarantee isn't going to happen is people aren't going to be sitting back not bidding, hoping it drops, because they've seen with Heritage and the last Comic Connect, it went up. So there's going to be even more bidding in this one. We're probably going to see more record prices sell, and as a result, all the other copies in the market are going to go up to match them. I know I'm going to be bidding on several of them in August. So after August, I think you're going to see another nice bump in the foreign market as the market adjusts to the new values that auction brings. But again, that's just my opinion. Only time's going to tell. There are no guarantees in collectibles, but in my opinion, foreign comics are about as close as you can get, because I've been in them 3 years now and I haven't seen them go down. They just steadily went up. You know, while the Americans were going up, it was nice because they weren't seeing the huge jumps that the American was. They just stayed slow and steady growth like they still are. So that's a sign of a healthy market, and they've had that sign for over 3 years now. So I'm really excited, and some other people are, about what the future over the next 2 or 3 years is going to bring with foreign editions, and hopefully you guys come along for the ride. So that is an overview of those panels. We're going to do the giveaway now as well, but I just want to briefly say where you can find us. We are on Instagram. We're basically Hockey Comics everywhere. Just look for the key that's on fire for the logo, whatnot, Hockey Comics, YouTube, Gmail. As I said at the beginning, we're also the first company to offer a foreign-focused comic pressing and cleaning service. I have an oversized 15 by 15 press, so I can do all the big ones. I've been successful getting stickers off them, getting ink transfer off them. You know, I've got 9.8 bumps for people, and I do a 24-hour cool down on everything to prevent reversion. So if you guys have any interest in that, just let me know. But yeah, let's do the giveaway. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the giveaway here. Yeah, make sure you guys get your tickets there. So this is the first ever line pack that Panini did. Panini is pretty much your major publisher for all your foreign editions now. And they had never done a blind pack in Italy before. This was their first one. It was for Miles Morales, #1. They released it right around the new Spider-Verse movie, so they, tried to promote that. But what they did, they have the main cover, They have a cover that's limited to only 500 copies, which I have one of here. That's this one here. So there's only 500 of those in the world. They have another one that's limited to only 50 copies. We've only seen a couple of those pulled so far. And there's a one-of-one that nobody has seen yet. Now, maybe someone pulled it and they're keeping it quiet, but most people, if they get that one-of-one, they're gonna announce it and tell you. So as far as we know, the one-of-one is still out there. These are sold out from Panini. They're sold out in Italy. I saw one guy on Instagram, he was just in Italy. He went to shops, he couldn't find them for sale. I was able to get a few. Out of the 50 packs I had originally, we've seen 2 of the 1 in 500s pulled, and that's it. So, you know, you could get that, you could get the main cover, or you could get one of those 1 of 50s, or maybe even the 101. So we're gonna give that away here. I got scissors so you can check it. I got a bag and board ready for it, because these are very high gloss, so you wanna be careful with fingerprints. So you'll see, I'll put it right in the bag and board for you. You wanna touch it as little as possible, just because of how high gloss they are. So someone is gonna get that right now. We'll go ahead and do that giveaway. So good luck. I got one more of those I'm giving away tomorrow as well. So if you don't get it today, come back tomorrow and you got a shot to get that one. All right, let's see. 784. That's you. Congratulations, all right. Let's see what you got here.
Wow.
Get your bag and board ready.
1 of 1.
You're gonna be instantly famous. If it is, you're gonna be instantly famous.
Yeah, oh my god.
Well, all right.
Make sure it's at the bottom
You
here.
can't sweaty? Yeah, I'm like, I'm nervous.
Let's see if you get one. That is the main cover, because there's
Okay.
trade dress. So if there's text, it's the main cover. And if there's not text, then you have one of the variants. So, there we go, we got a main cover again. I'm gonna
Very cool.
make sure I don't even touch it for you there.
Thank you.
Fingerprints.
Get in there. Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it bothers me when I see people opening these and they just grab it and touch it and finger it, and it's like, man, there's no way you're gonna get a 9.8 now. I got a piece of tape here as well to seal it for you. I think even,
Almost. So
right?
close, right? So close. It was like the next one produced, right?
Yeah, probably.
But even this main cover, I think, has good potential long-term, again, because of how damaged a lot of them are. But there you go, there is the blind pack with as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I got some posters as well. I can give away. Well, you guys can all just pick one here. See, we got a Scarlet Witch annual. These are sent out, just to give you an idea, by Penguin Random House, which I have an account with to order, but I don't have a shop. But, you know, they send these out for people to hang up in their shop, so they're pretty big posters.
Oh, nice.
So we got a Scarlet Witch one here. I guess I'll just draw, and then you guys can pick in the order you're drawing here. I'll show them all to you first. We have a Blade. Really nice one there for the Blade fans. And I got a few more of these for tomorrow too, so feel free to come back and win some of those. We got X-Men Hellfire Gala. So you may have seen these in your LCS. That's where you probably would see them at. If you did, you're like, man, I'd like to get one of those. This is your chance to get one of them.
Local comic shop?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and Ultimate Invasion #1 here. This is actually a landscape one. So there you go. So you got your pick of those four. Let's see who gets first pick here. 786.
Woo, first
There you
day.
go. So you got Ultimate Invasion, X-Men Gala, Blade, or Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet.
There you go. Congrats. Next. 783.
That's me.
That's you.
Landscape.
What's that?
The landscape.
Landscape. That was Ultimate Invasion, I believe.
Sounds good.
There's one. 785. You. So you got X-Men Hellfire Gala or Blade.
Excellent.
X-Men, there you go. And so you get the Blade poster. There you are. I also have just some reader copies. You know, some people, we call it the sickness when you get hooked. But some people really don't get hooked until they hold one in their hand. And so these are just to let you kind of flip through one, see what you think, grabbing onto some foreign comics there, and if they give you that sickness or not, get a good idea at least then of what they look like. Again, don't worry about damaging those aren't keys or nothing.
That is what most of my comments look like.
Yeah, and that's one of the risks you're gonna see, you know, especially if you start to order from overseas. They don't use bags and boards overseas. So a lot of times you'll get just a loose comic in a bubble mailer if you're lucky, or just a regular envelope. And a lot of times they get water damage or things like that, and you get comics like this where, you know, you really can't sell them. So it's just a risk you take. But yeah, that just gives you some ideas there. I also have, just to give you guys an idea, because I get asked a lot, what's your rarest comics? So I have my two examples here for you. This is definitely the jewel of my collection. I just got this a few weeks ago. This is Oguri from Brazil, but it's Planet Comics #1 from 1940. It's Will Eisner and Lou Fine cover. It's on Overstreet Top 100 Golden Age Comics list. There are only single digits of this known to exist. This is about as scarce as it gets. And, you know, I've been looking for one for a while. I didn't think I'd get one. This one has been trimmed and restored, and I don't care because there's single digits known to exist. You know, it's like getting an Action 1, you want it in any condition you can.
Yeah.
So that is really the jewel of my collection right now from 1940. That's not even for sale, it's only for trade for an equally rare foreign comic. It's the only way I'd give that one up. This, before I got this one, this was the highlight of mine. This is from Australia, it's from Jaffa, and it's Strange Tales. They only did 6 issues in this one, this is #2, but this is the cover, actually at Strange Tales 109, which is Jack Kirby cover. It's a color variation, as you see. This is the American. They did a nice brown background, but inside it has Strange Tales 110 as well, First Doctor Strange.
Oh.
And until about a month ago, I'd been trying to find one of these for over a year. One finally went on eBay. I mean, low grade copies, spine roll, rusty staple, pieces missing. Still went for $400 in just horrible condition. So this is the other centerpiece of my collection next to this, but just to give you an idea there. I have as well, put them over here, yep. I had the distinct honor of hosting Bill Morrison on my Whatnot sale in November, and he brought his personal foreign comic collection that he had from when he was editor at Bongo, and I was able to get a few of them. This is my favorite. This is from Italy. It's that Bart Michael Jackson homage cover. You know, these are always forever in my PC. These aren't available as well. But I got a cover set as well. I have this one. It was sealed with one of the toys inside, which was pretty common overseas. You know, they gimmick up a comic or whatever, add inserts to appeal to the kids. So I got that one, and then I have another one as well to give a nice cover set. I got my certificate of authenticity there, you know, saying it was signed. And Bill's here, so I recommend definitely stopping by his booth. He's got some more foreign comics. I just picked up some more from
Did
him.
you get both those like at the same time and did the toy out of one, or just?
No, yeah, this is another country that didn't come with the toy.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, I got all 3 of these on November 11th, 2022. It was Veterans Day, actually.
Oh.
And he, you know, he was gracious enough to come to my house and let me do a live broadcast with him. And people tuned in, and they bought his whole collection up, everything he had. I was able to get a few, luckily. But yeah, so those are some prizes in my collection as well. I got some German Spider-Man, and you guys are welcome to look at these if you want. Most of them are available if you like them. I have a kind of a Russian heavy stock this week because every panel I do, it's, you know, whatever I have currently at the stock is what you're gonna see. Right now, I just got a nice shipment from Russia in. Some of these here are plates. Yeah, these are 1-of-1 printing plates from Russia for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Series 2. So these are really cool. I had several of these, I'm down to my final 4 of them. But they don't look like metal until you see the back and you realize they are just a really nice thin metal. But yeah, each one of these, there's only 1 of them in the world. And you know, so you see cool stuff like that with foreign editions that you just don't really run into. I mean, you can go get printing plates from American, but they don't have really the same draw and appeal, in my opinion, like ones like these from other countries do. So you get to see some really cool stuff. You know, you get to every now and then find a grail like that that's just, you never think you're gonna get, and you just keep at it and keep looking, and you know, one day you get lucky, and that's how it happens. I got some other Russians, some Batman Who Laughs, some Moon Knight, X-Men, whatnot. So So yeah, that gives you a kind of an overview of the market and a little bit about foreign comics. Now tomorrow, the panel's at 1 p.m. It's just called Why Collect Foreign Comics. That's what I call our flagship panel. That really encompasses everything. We cover what foreign comics are, we cover the investment portion, we cover the cover sets, collecting those, we cover just collecting the guts, if you don't, because the covers don't always match the guts in foreign comics. You get used to that real quick. You know, just because something has the cover to Amazing Spider-Man 129 doesn't mean it's Amazing Spider-Man 129 inside. So we cover that tomorrow as well, cover how to source and supply them. You know, so it's a much more comprehensive, not nearly as data-driven as today is, but just a different approach to give you a better overall idea. So, and we'll be giving away another blind pack tomorrow as well. So, if you guys got any questions, yeah.
So I, less of a collector, more of a reader.
Sure.
Do the foreign comics change their names like a lot of the foreign comics come to America do?
Yes, and like especially there's a guy on Instagram. He does all the Nordic countries and how they change the name of Batman so much. Like one of them called him Batman, another called him Leather Flapping Wing, I think. You know, so you get some really ridiculous translations. I cover some of that in the panel tomorrow too. How these would change one name, or you know, one word translates different. And they don't change it. It can be a little obscene where it wasn't in America. Things like that. So yeah, you can see some
I know
really.
do a lot of like Shoji or something like that for a name, and then change it to Kent or something weird like that for American side.
Yeah.
Do they do that? Like.
You'll see that some, yeah. And there's no standard. It's not like every country did this. Each country did what they want, especially the farther back you go. Like Italy in the '60s, they were writing their own original stories. They had for Batman and Superman. They were just like, hey, we're just gonna create some stories. Maybe they were licensed, maybe they weren't, but you know, there wasn't no internet to get checked on. And Marvel wasn't sending people to all these countries to make sure every translation was true. So a lot of stuff slipped through the cracks, which really leads to some really cool stuff you can collect that, you know, it just doesn't exist in the American market.
Okay.
Even some of the English written ones will change names of things, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for example, is not
Right.
that.
Yeah. There was the UK and I think 4 other countries. There was a campaign that started out just to prevent kids from renting unrated movies, and that ballooned and blossomed to where they had to change the name of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. And they had to take the nunchucks away from Mike. He's just sitting there with empty fists in it. It's, you know, it's some really weird stuff that you just see it, and it's different from country to country. The discovery aspect, I talk about that tomorrow too. It really is one of the best parts of foreign comics. You get something new. You know, you might order a stack of 5 or 6 of them off eBay, and you have no idea what you're getting until you get them and open them up. You're like, hey, there's the first panel. It's a huge first appearance nobody knew about. You know, and that's still happening. There's no big data collection for foreign comics like there's American, where everyone like knows, okay, this appearance happened here and here and here, and we know everything in America. Not the case at all.
Not as well documented.
Yeah, it really is the Wild West, and that's one of the aspects I love about it. Any other questions, or I can talk about foreign comics for hours.
They really can.
Yeah, at my What Now, they'll be like, hey man, run a book. You know, I'll be running auctions, and I'll just start talking for 20 minutes and forget to run an auction. And, yeah.
So, more generic, I'm a collector, very much so. My current collection is 18,000 comics.
Wow.
Took over the whole basement.
Yep.
So I have a really interest in the foreign comics. I picked up a couple here and there. Finding them is the pain in the butt.
Yep.
What are better ways to find them?
There are foreign editions of eBay in most countries. Like if you just search eBay International List, eBay has its own site, and those are decent. What you want to be careful of, any other country's websites may not offer the same protection American eBay has. You might just be screwed if they don't ship the book, or a lot of them will only ship within country. So you got to do a little bit of due diligence and make sure, you know, you don't just want to click buy it now and hope. You want to make sure that the seller is going to ship to America, or like a lot of people do, they just come to my Tuesday shows and I can remove all that headache for them. And you know, I got sources and we're in 6 countries now shipping to us, so I can get a lot of these. And I removed a lot of that headaches. I'm dealing with people directly there I build relationships with. But yeah, sourcing them is one of the toughest parts, definitely. It's just something you learn as you go. You know, you pick up things here and there. Comics.org, Grand Comic Database, if you guys are familiar with that. That's your best overall source of data for foreign comics, but they are by no means complete. I mean, but they're pretty good. You know, I'm on there several times a day looking up stuff, and they're a good starting point. Some of their data's wrong, but most of it's right. Any other questions? Or if you got questions about any of the books up here, feel free, or if you're looking for something specific, you know, like, hey, I wanna collect such and such first appearance, I have want lists I keep for several people. It usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks to fill a want list. It's not like an American one, you know, you can call up to LCS and he's got one. But I'm pretty good at finding things for you. So if you guys have specific things you're looking for, just let me know. You know, find me on Instagram, keycomics@gmail. Instagram's your best bet, but I answer messages from all of them. But I'm on Instagram posting every day. That's the main source. Yeah, I really appreciate everyone coming out. I love the world of foreign comics, you know, and tomorrow, like I said, at 1 p.m., it's more of an all-encompassing view, so if you're still curious about them, definitely come back tomorrow at 1 and you'll learn a lot more. That this is, again, just the market aspect. And they asked us if we could do a second panel. I said, sure, I can talk about foreign comics forever. So we'll focus on just the market, and because we just had the Heritage and Comic Connect auction, so that was really relevant to do. But tomorrow really is the first panel we started where we cover everything